Students, welcome to the second class of Alternative English. Today, I'll be reading the second paragraph onwards, followed by explanation. The verger busied himself quietly, replacing the painted wooden cover on the marble font, taking over a chair that had been brought for an infirm old lady, and waited for the vicar to have finished in the vestry so that he could tidy up in there and go home. Presently he saw him walk across the chancel, genuflect in front of the high altar, and come down the aisle, but he still wore his cassock. Explanation. We remember that the christening function was going on, and by now it is over. The verger is now replacing all the things in their proper places. The verger busied himself quietly. He was doing his work very silently, without any noise or without any disturbance. First, he covered up the marble font. Now, what is a font? Font is a place where a small amount of water can be kept. It is in a church, and the water of the font can be used for different purposes in different ceremonies. Then he replaced a chair that had been brought for an old lady. The lady was weak, and now he was waiting for the vicar to come out of the vestry. Now, who is a vicar? Vicar is the priest of a church. He carries on all the functions, being helped by other staff like the verger or the church wardens. Now, the vicar is here a new one. The old vicar has left the church. Now, what is a vestry? A vestry is a room attached to a church or chapel used for keeping vestments, vessels, and records. After completing his works, the verger is waiting. So let us see what goes on. So we find that the verger was waiting for the vicar to come so that he could ask for leave. Presently, he saw that the vicar was coming towards him. The vicar walked across the chancel. Chancel is a part of a church near the altar, reserved for the clergy, choir, and usually enclosed. The vicar bowed before the high altar and came down the aisle. Aisle is a passage between rows of seats or pews, a wing or lateral division of a church. Here we must understand that there are seating arrangements, and in between the seating arrangements there is a way, and that is aisle. But what surprised the verger, that is Albert Edward Foreman, was that the new vicar was still in his cassock. Now, cassock is a dress, that is an official dress, to be worn by a priest. The vicar in his cassock suggested that the vicar did not put off his dress in the vestry, and still he has some work to be done. Albert Edward Foreman was about to go to the vestry in order to put off his dress and then go home. But as he saw the vicar coming towards him in his official dress, he was annoyed, and he says to himself, I'm reading the lines, what he says to himself, what's he hanging about for? The verger said to himself, don't he know I want my tea? Albert Edward Foreman talks to himself in a very colloquial language, and he says that he wants to go home and he has been waiting there for the vicar to allow him to go home. But it seems that the time is not yet proper because he finds that the vicar is coming towards him and he has something more to talk to Albert Edward Foreman. Foreman wanted to go home because he wanted his tea, the evening tea, which was awaiting him. The next paragraph. The vicar had been but recently appointed, a red faced, energetic man in his early 40s, and Albert Edward still regretted his predecessor, a clergyman of the old school who preached leisurely sermons in a silvery voice and dined out a great deal with his more aristocratic parishioners. He liked things in the church to be just so, but he never fussed. He was not like this new man who wanted to have his finger in every pie. But Albert Edward was tolerant. St. Peter's was in a very good neighborhood, and the parishioners were a very nice class of people. The new vicar had come from the East End, and he could not be expected to fall in all at once with the discreet ways of his fashionable congregation. Explanation. Students, in this paragraph, we are introduced with another character, that is the old vicar. The old vicar had left St. Peter's Neville Square Church, and the new vicar had come from the East End of London. He was a man in the early 40s with a red face. He looked energetic. The writer also comments on the new vicar that he always wanted to have his finger in every pie. To have one's finger in every pie means to interfere in others' affairs. The new vicar liked to interfere in others' affairs, but the old one was not like that. Albert Edward Foreman liked the old vicar for his gentle behavior and good behavior. He regretted his absence. The old vicar used to teach religious teachings in a very leisurely manner, in a good manner, with a silvery voice. He even never minded to dine with aristocratic parishioners. Albert Edward Foreman, however, hoped that the new vicar would take time to fall in to these patterns of the society and the people living in that society. With the passage of time, the old vicar proved himself to be a very loving person, and like that, the new vicar would also need time to prove himself as the old one. This was the hope made by Albert Edward Furman. Students, we have come to the end of the fourth paragraph.